Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Tuesday, June 1st. Over the next several days through the end of the week, we will continue to have increasing temperatures, very hot conditions, and temperatures approaching records from mid to late week across the area shaded in brown, so much of the Great Basin. Strong high pressure will continue to dominate. Under this high pressure, we'll also have some moisture creep in for some isolated thunderstorms in the Sierra on Wednesday, but an increase on Thursday over parts of western and central Nevada, also up into southwest Idaho and parts of southern and central Utah. These thunderstorms in Nevada and Utah will continue to monitor, and we may see some increased fire potential over parts of central and eastern Nevada into Utah and potentially up into Idaho. Over the last 24 hours, we've seen very little precipitation with only a few isolated thunderstorms in the far southern portion of Utah. Fire activity has been light with several small fires reported across the Great Basin. We have had some recent large fire activity in parts of southern and eastern Nevada recently, and also up in parts of northern Utah. With the increase in temperatures and the dry conditions and a return of lightning, we could see similar fires emerging from mid to late week. Over the last 7 days, we've had precipitation mainly over the northern half of the Great Basin, with very dry conditions remaining in southern and western areas. Over the last 30 days, we've only seen some areas of above normal precipitation in parts of central and northeast Nevada. The rest of the region, even in the north that has seen precipitation, has been below normal, with obviously well below normal conditions over the southern part of the Great Basin into central and western Utah. Currently, our ERCs are above the 80th to 90th percentile over southern areas and have been increasing with the hot and dry conditions further north and are now approaching the 70th to 80th percentile in some areas. Looking at our ERC maps, you can see in southwest Idaho, ERCs have been rising rapidly and are approaching records for the time of year. We are continuing to see record ERCs over the southern portion of the Great Basin and even over parts of western areas. So again, well above normal ERCs in many areas approaching records. Our live fuel moisture in the north has been near normal for sagebrush but is trending downward. Further south into Utah and southern Nevada, sagebrush fuel moisture obviously are below normal, but they will continue to trend downward here over the next week or two. Our satellite image shows a high pressure ridge dominating the west coast. This will continue to push eastward across the Great Basin this week and will be responsible for the well above normal to near record temperatures. Later this afternoon, that ridge again remains on the west coast, so we will see warm and dry conditions across the Great Basin. Many areas of Nevada and Utah are now in the yellow or brown category for low to moderate risk of large fire. Still moderated conditions in the north, but we will see drying conditions across Idaho and Wyoming as well as we move through this week. Today, temperatures will be increasing to the upper 90s to near 100 degrees over parts of western Nevada and will be into the 90s across much of Nevada, Utah, and the southern portion of Idaho. Relative humidity will drop into the single digits in the far south and remain in the teens in most other areas, a little bit more elevated further north. As we move into Wednesday, this ridge of high pressure moves over the Great Basin, so we will continue to see those hot and dry conditions with only a few thunderstorms possible along the Sierra. And you can see those thunderstorms again on Wednesday, mainly in the higher terrain of the Sierra and the Sierra front. We will have a little bit of precip with those, but again will be a mix of wet and dry storms. Otherwise, dry conditions and low relative humidity across the Great Basin. On Thursday, that ridge moves further east to dominate much of the Great Basin into the Rockies. We will see a little bit more moisture creep up for an increase in lightning over parts of central and eastern Nevada into southern Utah. We do have some high risk in the areas where fuels are most critically dry and where we'll see more of an abundance of lightning. These storms will be a mix of wet and dry, but again, due to the drought conditions and how very dry the fuels are with these hot temperatures, we will see that increased risk. We will be watching parts of southwest Idaho on Thursday as those thunderstorms move up into those areas, but fuels are a little bit more marginal in parts of Idaho. On Thursday, you can see the increase of these little spatterings of lightning over parts of western and central Nevada into eastern Nevada and also across Utah. We will also see some lightning over parts of central Idaho. Again, fuels aren't as critical, but we do certainly have some drier fuels in both the low to higher elevations. So it will be something to watch on Thursday. Relative humidity will remain low across the Great Basin. Forecast amounts of precipitation are very light. We will see some precip, especially in the higher terrain of the Sierra as these thunderstorms increase, but for the most part, these will be a mix of wet and dry, and we're not expecting significant amounts of precipitation. As we move into late in the week, the high pressure ridge continues to move off to the east, still very hot temperatures, well above normal and near records in some areas. We do have a trough approaching the northwest coast, which will bring some increased winds to the far north. But for the most part, we're looking at that lightning risk, again, for parts of central and eastern Nevada into Utah. We may see our high risk areas expand as we get closer to Friday, so it will be something to monitor, especially for eastern Nevada and into Utah. On Saturday, these thunderstorms move a little bit further east to parts of eastern Utah. We have no high risk yet, but we will be watching those areas of thunderstorms and any moisture moving into the weekend. Winds will be increasing across parts of the northern areas of the Great Basin as that trough moves in. We will see a little bit cooler temperatures also in the north as that low moves in. On Sunday, similar conditions to Saturday, a little bit breezy in the north, still hot and dry conditions in the south with some lingering moisture along the Colorado-Utah border. Going into Monday, we will see the trough of low pressure drop down along the west coast. So again, a little bit increase in winds we are expecting certainly for later in the weekend and early next week. We have no high risk that far out, but it will be something we'll be watching for some of our critical areas. Forecast amounts of precipitation with any of this lightning, again, it will be a mix of wet and dry, so some areas could see a little bit of precipitation, but we're not expecting widespread areas of moisture, so it certainly will be something to watch with these very hot temperatures and very dry fuels across the southern half of the Great Basin especially. The 8 to 14-day outlook takes us from June 8th through the 14th, showing a little bit of cooling along the west coast with these troughs moving in. However, still looking at very warm and dry conditions for the eastern half of the Great Basin. As these troughs move in, we will see periods of winds and cooler temperatures. However, we are expecting a fairly warm month for the month of June. That concludes the webcast for today. Check back tomorrow for the latest updates.